Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Bhaktasya Kalyana Gurunana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Bhaktasya Kalyana Gurunana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam 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 Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhaju Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shingara Tanma Niramajanado Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shingara Tanma Niramajanado Juktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Swatana Triptan Hari Bhakta Shangan Chaturvidha Shri Kridvaiva trupte bhajata sadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shiradikama Gavayara Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Shiradikama Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Swa Danalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Pratikshana Swa Danalalupasya Ne Kunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Bhirjukti Apekshaniya Nikunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Bhirjukti Apekshaniya Tatrati Dakhya Ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri charanaravrindam tatratidakhya ativaravasya Sakchadharitvena Shamastashrastre Uktastatha Bhavyataiva Sarve Sakchadharitvena Kintu Prabhoja Priya Eva Tasya Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Yayam Tuvam Tasya Yashastri Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Yayam Tuvam Tasya Yashastri Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Pachata Deshatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shivasari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Bola Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hariyaraye Nama Krishna Jadavaye Nama Jadavaye Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Hariyaraye Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopina Madana Mohan Giridhari Gopina Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattara Guna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Tasara Guna Shri Jiva Gopala Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo.
नमामीश्वरं सच्चित् आनन्दरूपं रसत्कुण्डलं गोकुले व्रजमानम् यशोदाभियोलोकालादवमानं परां दृष्टमत्यन्तातो धृतगोप्या रुदन्तमोहो नेत्रायुग्ममृजन्तं कराम्बोजयुग्मेन शातङ्कनेत्रम् मोहश्वासकम्पात्रिरेकाङ्ककान्ता स्थिताग्रैवं दामोदरं भक्तिबद्धाम् स्वलीलाभिरानन्दकुण्डे स्वघोषं निमज्जन्तम् आख्यापयन्तम् तदीयेषितागेषु भक्तजितत्वं पुनः प्रेमतस्तं सतावृत्ति वन्दे वरं देवमोक्षं न मोक्षावधिं वा न चन्यं वृणेऽहं वारिषदपेहा इदं ते वपुर्नाथा गोपालबालं सदा मे मनस्याविरस्तं किमन्ये इदं ते मुकाम्बोजमत्यन्तनीलं कृतं कुण्डले स्निग्धारक्तस्य गोप्या शुम्भितां बिम्बारक्तादरां मे मनस्या विरस्तमलं लक्षलाभम् नमो देव दामोदरानन्त विष्णु प्रसीद प्रभो दुःखजालब्धिमग्नम् कृपादृष्टिवृष्ट्यातिदीनां भटानो गृहाणे क्षमामग्नमे दक्षिदृश्या कुबेरात्मजो बद्धमृत्यैव याद्वत् त्वया मोचिता भक्तिभाजकृतौ च तथा प्रेम भक्तिं स्वकामे प्रयाच न मोक्षे ग्रहो मेष्टे दामोदरिता नमस्ते स्तुदामे स्फुरदीप्तिदाम्ने त्वदीयोदराय विश्वस्य दाम्ने नमो राधिकाय त्वदीया प्रियाय नमो नन्दलीलाय देवाय तोभ्याम् नमो राधिकाय त्वदीया प्रियाय नमो नन्दलीलाय देवाय तोभ्याम् हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Vishpara Param Saparvajakacha Distuttara Sarashishimat Iskon Pratishta Bibiti Samstapakachara Vaishnava Sramani Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prema Bhakti Datta Patita Pavana His Divine Grace Abhay Charavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patitu Dhari Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatra Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्रद्धेय गदाधर श्री गौर भक्त बिंद की जय परम दयाल नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम सच्चिनंदन श्रीमन गौरांग चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावन अवतार की जय गोलोकेर प्रेमधान हरि नाम संकीर्तन जय की जय जुग धर्म हरि कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय बृहत् निदांग ट्रांसनेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्णा गोप गोपीनाथ राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय श्री ब्रजम वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय लौशिव श्री राधा नील माधव की जय श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्रधाम की जय परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशन करने सिंहरे भगवान की जय गंगा माँ जमुना माँ की जय तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय बोलो श्री मथुरा धारानी की जय समवेत भक्त विंद की जय निताय गौरी प्रमानंदे all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya
Namaste Narasimhaya
Praladadadayine Hiranyakashipurvakshaha Shilatankanakalaye Ito Narasimha Parato Narasimha
Ito Nisimha Parato Nisimha
Eto Yato Yamitato Narasimha
Jaya Datta Datta Jami Datta Nisimha
Bahe Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha
Gaye Nisimha Hridaye Nisimha
Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade
Narasimha Masim Sharanam Prapade
Tava Karakamalabare Nakam Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanuvringa Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare
Abakara Kamalabare Enakam Adabutta Shiva Dalika Iranakasipu
Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, oh Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Bhakti Pada Sarvignash Krishna Hari Bhagavan ki जय। ये भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। निताय गौर हरि प्रमानंदे। Shri Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priya Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namah. Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priya Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namah. Vrindai Tulasi Devi Priya Ke Sava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namah. जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namah.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namah. Radha Krishna Seva Prabhu Lasi Radha Krishna Seva Prabhu Tomara Sharanala Taravancha Bula Tumi kripa kare karatare Vrindavana vase Aminayane Divasara Jogana Nivedana Dhara Sati Vyano Vataka Seva Yare Karadi Karadi Jadasi Dina Krishna Das Koi Eye Namara Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sada Navasi Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sada Navasi Jani Kani Sapatani Brahma Kali Kanisa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradati Napade Pade Gani Kani Sapatani Brahma Kali Kanisa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradati Napade Pade Tani Kani Sapapani Brahma Kali Kanisa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradati Napade Kani Sapatani Brahma Kali Kanisa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade Tani Kani Sapapani Brahma Kali Kanisa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hariba, 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 Nitai Gaura Hariba. Jai. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priya Ki Sabha Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Sattavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priya Ki Sabha Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Sattavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulasi Devai Priyaye Ke Sabha Satya Krishna Bhakti Pradideve Shattavatai Namo Namaha. Jishmati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower who carry damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise, may I always swim in love Shri Radha and Govinda. Shri Mate Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikhastakam Ki Jai. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamati Durdaiva Midrishamyajani Nanuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sarishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtanya Sadahari Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadishakamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavatar Bhakti Rahaitu Kirtvayi Ayinanda Tanuja Kinkaram Paritama Vishame Bhavambudu Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stita Duli Sadrisham Vichintaya Vadanam with the mic Ulakarin Chitamba Pukada Tavanama Gahane Bhavisati Yugaitam Nimishena Chakyusa Pravasaitam Sunyaitam Bhagata Sarvam Govinda Vedame Asya Shiva Padatam Pradashma Adashanam
cleanse the heart of all the dust accumulated for years, and change the prime conditional life of repeated birth and death. The Sanctiton movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to the living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen to this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy names. When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs on my body stand on end at the recitation of the holy name? O my Lord, feeling your separation, I am going through now it's falling before my eyes like rain. I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Siksastakam Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tanami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharni Nirvisesa Sunimani Paskati Satani. To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating holy names to the Lord. To consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent names of Lord Vishnu. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. To blaspheme the Vedic literature pursuant to the Vedic version. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna as imagination. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruit of activities of karma kanda. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. To not have complete faith in the chanting of holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpataribhyascha kripasindubhyevcha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Vaishnava Thakura ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tanamani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharni Nirvisesa Sunimani Paskati Satani. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Om Aganya Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Pajakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parichana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Devitam Sha Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Brahmacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namine Shiva Subhani Vi Devi Dayitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhakti Da Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishwaraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Virbhava Bhamestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Sri Jaganatayate Namaha Vanchakalpa Durubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patittanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guritsase Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratur Bhangur Mamamanda Mater Gati Matsarva Swapadambujo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vindaranya Kalpadumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prestadi Bhisi Vimanus Marami Shiman Rasa Rasa Rambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venus Vanir Gopir Gopinatakstriestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavineswari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Satma Sakalpa Vriksha Laksa Vritesa Surabhira Vipaliantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kwanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham Bharhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Visesa Sobham Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shaman Trivangalalita Nita Prakasam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadinatharupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsada Ramyo Vayora Tampi Manasomani Pungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadisimya Vichinti Tatpe Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chayatum Jagaranda Kotim Yas Chakti Rasta Jagaranda Chaya Yadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Deva Manajastaiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayonabusa Suktarya Meva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmayara Satpati Bhavita Bhistabirya Eva Nijarupataya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhutto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidesa Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundarama Chintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatista Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvanesu Kinto Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pamam Yo Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Koti Svasesa Vasubhadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Sesa Bhutam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Mayahi Yasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Trigun Yatad Visaya Veda Vitayamanam Sattva Vulambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmayara Satmataya Manasriya Praninam Patifalam Smaratam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Jasram Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakolokanamni Nijatamni Tale Chitasya Devi Maheswari Dama Satesha Tete Pravavani Chaya Vitashta Yena Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Chististate Pralaya Sada Vasakti Reka Chayevi Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Abhyasya Chitestate Sa Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yatada Divikara Visesi Yoga Sanjayate Nahita Tapritagasti Hetu Yasam Bhutama Pitata Samupaitikari Yat Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Diparcha Devi Desantanam Abhyapetya Dipayate Vilita Hetu Samana Dharma Yastaja Gevi Hicha Vishnutaya Vibhati Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narla Vajali Bhajatisma Yoga Nidramananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupa Adhara Saktim Avalambya Paramsvam Urtim Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaka Nisvasat Kalamata Avalambya Jivanti Loma Villaja Jagadanda Nata Vishnur Mahansa Yasya Kalavi Seso Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakalesana Jesu Teja Sriyam Kiyat Pakatayata Pitat Pratatra Brahmaya Isa Jagadanda Sadani Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yatpada Palava Yugam Vidayakum Badwande Pranama Samayesa Gnadi Raja Vignan Vihanta Malamasya Jagatrayasya Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahika Ganamambu Maruthri Sascha Kalasta Takma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Amcha Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Sudesa Savitasya Galagrahana Raja Samasta Sudamursti Sesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kalachakro Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmota Papa Nijaya Sudayasta Pamsi Brahmadi Kita Patagavata Yasta Jivaha Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakita Prabhava Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrinda Gopa Matavenda Mahusva Karma Bandhana Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nidhati Kinta Chibhakti Bhajam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yagrodha Kama Saja Panadi Biti Vatsalya Moha Guru Guru Vasevya Bhava Santincha Tasya Sadhusintana Mapuretya Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shia Kanta Kanta Paramapurisha Kalpatara Vajumabu Mishti Tamani Ganama Ito Amrita Kataganam Natyam Gamanama Pivamsi Prayasaki Chiranandam Jyoti Parama Apita Daswatyamapicha Sayatra Siradi Visavadi Siravi Vyasta Sumahani Mesa Dakya Vavajiti Nahirat Pudi Rama Samaya Pajesvita Dvitam Tamaham Ihukolakam Ityam Vidanta Ste Santaksati Vrachara Katipaye Shri Guru Vasta prayers Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as the cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing a blazing fire material existence. Offer my respectful base unto lotus feet. Such spiritual master's ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing next to you, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always glad by the sanctified movement. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. Of my respectful base unto lotus feet. Such spiritual master. Spiritual master is always engaged in the temple where Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship to the Lord. Offer my respectful base unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is lectured on this. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied being Bhagavad Prasadi, he is satisfied. However, my respectful base unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. Spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. However, my respectful base unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting gopis who at different times make different tastes and raising for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the realms of Vrindavan. Offer my most humble base unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master to be honored as much as Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful base unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, I receive the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, I cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. From what I should offer my respectful base unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, text number 9 again. Sadyatma Sadidayvascha Sadibhuta iti trida Virat prano dasya vidha Ekada hridayena cha Sa adyatma, the body and the body and mind with all the senses. Sa Adidaiva, and the controlling demigods of the senses. Cha and Sa Adibhuta, the present objectives. Iti, thus, Trida, three, Virat, gigantic, Prana, moving force, Dasavida, 10 kinds, Ikada, one only, Hirdayena, living energy, Cha, also. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The gigantic universal form is represented by 3, 10, and 1, in the sense that he is the body and the mind and the senses. He is the dynamic force for all movements by 10 kinds of life energy, and he is the one heart where life energy is generated. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In Bhagavad Gita 7.4 to 5, it is stated that the 8 elements, earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and false ego, are all products of the Lord's inferior energy, whereas the living entities, who are seen to utilize the inferior energy, originally belonged to the superior energy, the internal potency of the Lord. The 8 inferior energies work grossly and subtly, whereas the superior energy works as the central generating force. This is experienced in the human body. The gross elements, namely earth, etc., form the external gross body and are like a coat, whereas the subtle mind and false ego act like the inner clothing of the body. The movements of the body are first generated from the heart, and all the activities of the body are made possible by the senses, powered by the 10 kinds of air within the body. The 10 kinds of air are described as follows. The main air passing through the nose is breathing is called prana. The air which passes through the rectum as evacuated bodily air is called apana. The air which adjusts the foodstuff within the stomach and which sometimes sounds as belching is called samana. The air which passes through the throat and the stoppage of which constitutes suffocation is called the udana air. And the total air which circulates throughout the entire body is called the vyana air. Subtler than these 5 airs, there are others also, that which facilitates the opening of the eyes, mouth, etc., is called naga air. The air which increases appetite is called krikara air. The air which helps contraction is called kurma air. The air which helps relaxation by opening the mouth wide in yawning is called devadatta air. And the air which helps sustenance is called dhananjaya air. All these airs are generated from the center of the heart, which is one only. This central energy is superior energy of the Lord, who is seated within the heart with the soul of the body, who acts under the guidance of the Lord. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 15:15 as follows. Sarvashacham hridivasani mistur matak smriti jnanam apahanam cha vedaischa sarvaham eva vedya vedanta krid vedavid eva chavaham. The complete central force is generated from the heart by the Lord, who is seated there and who helps the conditioned soul in remembering and forgetting. The conditioned state is due to the soul's forgetfulness of his relationship of subordination to the Lord. One who wants to continue to forget the Lord is helped by the Lord to forget him birth after birth. But one who remembers him by dint of association with a devotee of the Lord is helped to remember him more and more. Thus, the conditioned soul can ultimately go back home, back to Godhead. The process of transcendental help by the Lord is described in the Bhagavad Gita 10.10 as follows. Te sam satsta yuktanam bhajatam pratipurdvukam tavdami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. The buddhi yoga process of self-realization with intelligence, transcendental to the mind, devotional service, can alone elevate one from the conditioned state of material entanglement in the cosmic construction. The conditioned state of the living entity is like that of a person who is within the depths of a huge mechanical arrangement. The mental speculators can reach the point of Buddhi Yoga after many, many lifetimes of speculation. But the intelligent person who begins from the platform of intelligence above the mind makes rapid progress in self-realization, because the Buddhi Yoga process entails no fear of deterioration or retrogression at any time. It is the guaranteed path to self-realization as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 2.40. The mental speculators cannot understand that the two birds, Sritasvatara Upanishad, sitting in one tree and the soul and the supersoul. The mental speculators cannot understand that the two birds, this is in Sritasvatara Upanishad, sitting in one tree are the soul and the supersoul. The individual soul eats the fruit of the tree, while the other bird does not eat the fruit, but only observes the activities of the eating bird. Without attachment, the witnessing bird helps the fruit-eating bird perform fruitive activities. One who cannot understand this difference between the soul and the supersoul, or God and the living entities, is certainly still in the entanglement of the cosmic machinery, and thus must await the time when he will be free from bondage. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Now, there's so many wonderful points in this purport, and we're going to cover a whole bunch of them today. I covered one part of it yesterday. The main point here is that scientists today don't accept the existence of the soul in the body, neither the individual soul or the supersoul. Therefore, what can they understand? You see, and if you look up on the internet, the scientists' understanding of what generates energy in the body, they say it's food. They don't say it's the soul, the supersoul. Supersoul is the source of all energy in the body. Even the jiva is not the supersoul. The jiva derives its energy from the soul. And as scientists, they say the body derives its energy from food. So let's see what it says. What is a scientist's theory of the energy in the body? So this is very interesting. Go ahead.
Says energy comes from the three main nutrients: carbohydrates, protein, and fats.
He didn't mention supersoul, right?
Yeah.
You see how far away they are from knowing the truth. They'll never understand because of their false egos. They have to accept that they're subordinate to the Lord. So here we see there's no way for them to understand reality of the body. And they claim to be experts on the body and matter. They don't understand anything. And this is what's taught to kids. They say, oh, you get these three nutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, and blah, blah, blah. And then kids just go along with it. Now, the proof of this is the Goswamis. They virtually stopped eating. They had just a little bit of ghee every day that they would beg from grihastas. And they were perfectly healthy, and they were functioning. And the more one is an advanced yogi, the less they eat and sleep. So the Goswamis also hardly slept half an hour a day, maybe 1 hour maximum. Right? So you see, the body is not getting its energy from food. Now you might say, well, the food helps, okay. But no, it's the soul. It's the super soul. It's not even the soul, it's the super soul, which is the source of all energy. And that's an unlimited source. Just like the sunshine is unlimited source, right? And Krishna is the source of the sunshine, and which is the Brahma Jyoti coming from the spiritual world, which is coming from his body. So imagine how much powerful energy is in your heart coming from the Lord directly, right? So we don't realize these things. When you read this, Did any of you realize this yesterday, when the day before when we read this purport? Did you know that scientists don't, well, you know scientists, they don't accept the super soul, but their explanation is a false narrative. There are many things like this, many, many things like this that we'll gradually understand as we keep reading the Bhagavatam. You know. Okay, so Prabhupada says the complete force is generated from the heart by the Lord, who is seated there and who helps the conditioned soul in remembering and forgetting. Now, I'm going to read some very interesting things from Bhagavad Gita purports for the same point. That's why everything is in Bhagavad Gita, but you don't realize it until you read Srimad Bhagavatam very carefully, and you have to read it very carefully, because in Bhagavad Gita it's in very succinct form, meaning very short form, but in Bhagavatam it's in a very long form, right? So it says in the second chapter, 22nd verse, as a person puts on new garments, giving up the old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Change of body by the atomic individual soul is an accepted fact. Even the modern scientists who do not believe in the existence of the soul, say there it is, who do not believe in the existence of the soul, but at the same time cannot explain the source of energy from the heart, have to accept continuous changes of body which appear from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth and again from youth to old age. Look, what a brilliant statement by Prabhupada. Right? He's saying, who do not believe, these scientists, they do not believe in the existence of the soul, but at the same time, they cannot explain the source of energy from the heart. They know it's coming from the heart, or they think it's coming from the heart, but they don't understand it. So they say, read that again, what you read, Prabhu. What do they say? And this is what they teach in the school.
The energy comes from the three main nutrients: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats.
And can you read some more? Let's hear some. What else? Let's hear some more nonsense.
Yeah, with the carbohydrates being the most important energy source.
Go ahead.
In cases where carbohydrates have been depleted, the body can utilize protein and fats for energy.
That's it. Go read a little bit more. Make fun of these guys. Nonsense people. Go ahead.
Your metabolism is the chemical reactions in the body's cells that change this food into energy.
They change what?
Food into the energy.
Food, not food.
Yeah, food.
It's not a word. It's food.
Food.
Yes.
Into energy. Yeah. Most of the energy the body needs is for being at rest, known as the other metabolism. They continue on the metabolism. What is metabolism?
Well, metabolism is changing the food into glucose. You metabolize. You changed it. Look up the word metabolize. No, not you. Somebody. Okay. Adi Dev. Look up the word metabolize. METABOLIZE. What does it say? Got it? Go ahead. Give him the microphone. What does it say, metabolize?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. It says to change food into a form that can be used by your body.
That's called glucose. Okay, go back now. Keep reading a little bit more nonsense from the scientists. Take the microphone. Go ahead.
Yeah. Most of the energy the body needs is for being at rest,
Being what?
For being at rest.
At rest.
Yeah.
Like sleeping, in other words.
Yeah.
Okay. Most of the energy is what?
So they're saying most of the energy is used during the rest,
Okay, while one is sleeping. Okay, go ahead.
known as
Yeah,
the
because your body is still working when you're sleeping, right? So something has to. Go ahead.
um, this is the minimum amount of energy the body requires to maintain its vital functions such as breathing, circulation, and organ functions.
See, they're saying the food is doing it. No, the food is not doing it. It's Paramatma that's doing it. You see, you see how they're misleading everyone, right? There's no question of God. It's all just matter, just chemicals. See, and it's all happening, automatically. And it all started by accident. This is nonsense. It's complete nonsense. Go ahead, read some more nonsense.
Yeah. The rate at which this energy is utilized varies based on the genetics, sex, age, height, and weight.
Didn't mention Paramatma, huh?
No.
Okay, that's enough.
So
I'm sick and tired of hearing it. This is what kids learn. They study it, You want to be a doctor, you have to know all this nonsense. So therefore, it's not surprising they don't believe in God. Or if they believe in God, it's, so they can get something. Please give me this and give me that. But it's not really, no real love for Krishna. So it says here, even the modern scientists who do not believe in the existence of the soul, but at the same time cannot explain the source of energy from the heart. Say, there it is. They can't explain it. So they give this kind of phony explanation, right? Have to accept continuous changes of body which appear from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth and again from youth to old age. From old age, the change is transferred to another body. This has already been explained in a previous verse, 2.13. Transference of the atomic soul to another body is made possible by the grace of the supersoul. The supersoul fulfills the desire of the atomic soul as one friend fulfills the desire of another. The Vedas, like the Mundaka Upanishad, as well as the Svatasvatara Upanishad, compare the soul and the supersoul to two friendly birds sitting on the same tree. One of the birds, the individual atomic soul, is eating the fruit of the tree, and the other bird, Krishna, is simply watching his friend. Of these two birds, although they are the same in quality, one is captivated by the fruits of the material tree, while the other is simply witnessing the activities of his friend. Krishna is the witnessing bird, and Arjuna is the eating bird. Although they are friends, one is still the master and the other is the servant. Forgetfulness of this relationship by the atomic soul is the cause of one's changing his position from one tree to another or from one body to another. So, do you teach this to your kids? Hey, if you're not thinking of Krishna, you will continue in the cycle of birth and death. Are you teaching them? No, they're learning. If I don't remember the metabolism of food, I won't pass the test. And therefore, I got to pass the test because I want to make a lot of money when I get out of college. This is nonsense. You understand? It has nothing to do with life, real life. Real life is eternal life. They're not learning anything about eternal life. They're just learning about temporary things that are going to come and go. Just like the scientists, they claim they know something, but they're changing their body, and they're going to die, and who knows what next body they're going to have. They have no idea. They don't understand anything about Paramatma. They just give false narratives. It's the food, it's the carbohydrates, it's this, it's that. It's nothing. They have no idea of the body and what's making it run. So Prabhupada continues, he says, forgetfulness of this relationship by the atomic soul is the cause of one's changing his position from one tree to another or from one body to another. The jiva soul is struggling very hard on the tree of the material body. But as soon as he agrees to accept the other bird as the supreme spiritual master, as Arjuna agreed to do by voluntary surrender unto Krishna for instruction, the subordinate soul immediately becomes free from all lamentations. Who is voluntarily surrendering to Krishna today? Do you know somebody that's voluntarily surrendering to Krishna? Very few people. Are your kids voluntarily surrendering to Krishna? Probably not, right? You have to voluntarily do it. It cannot be forced. You can try and force them. No, they have to do it on their own. And the only way they could do it on their own is being educated in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, not being educated on carbohydrates and proteins and sugars and blah, blah, blah nonsense, you see. They're not getting educated. They're being taught to be stupid for the rest of their life and to forget Krishna, not to remember Krishna, right? So then it says here, Arjuna agreed to do by voluntary surrender unto Krishna for instruction. The subordinate bird immediately becomes free from all lamentations. Both the Mandaka Upanishad 3.1.2 and the Srutasrutara Upanishad 4.7 confirm this. Samani vriksha purusho nimagno nishaya sochati muyamanaha justam yada pasyat anyam isam anyamahim manam itivittasoka. Although the two birds are in the same tree, the eating bird is fully engrossed with anxiety and moroseness as the enjoyer of the fruits of the tree. But if in some way or other he turns his face to his friend, who is the Lord, and knows his glories, at once the suffering bird becomes free from all anxieties. You have to know the Lord and his glories. That requires time, energy, and patience to learn his glories. That person who knows the Lord and his glories, it says, at once the suffering bird becomes free from all anxieties. Arjuna has now turned his face towards his eternal friend, Krishna, and is understanding the Bhagavad Gita from him. And thus, hearing from Krishna, he can understand the supreme glories of the Lord and be free from lamentation. This Bhagavad Gita is so powerful. It has everything in it. Because Prabhupada wrote Bhagavad Gita as it is, not as like Gandhi wanted Bhagavad Gita to be a treatise of nonviolence. Now, you got to be crazy to think that the Bhagavad Gita is about nonviolence. He wrote a whole book trying to prove it. It's all about nonviolence. This is nonsense. This is craziness. This is a person who's completely an illusion. That's why he screwed up India, right? He didn't do anything good. He messed the whole place up because he was confused, right? He was a politician dressed as a sadhu. Does that make sense? Being a politician dressed as a sadhu? No. And he wasn't even a sadhu. He got his arm around women all the time and sleeping with women, right? He claimed, well, I wanted to prove that I was free from sense gratification. So he would sleep naked with a woman at night to prove that he was not engaged in sex. Just sleeping with a woman means sense gratification. What are you talking about? You see, this is nonsense stuff. Did you know this about him? Yeah, you should read his biography. It's not an autobiography, but people have written about him. You know, you'd be surprised at things that he did. You'd be very surprised. He did some good things. Okay, you know, he was in prison. You know, and he said that prison is liberation. He said, how did he say that in Hindi? Jail something. He said. Anyway, so he did a few things. We had a few ideas which were good. You know, let's decentralize all the cities. Go back to the village. Let's stop being dependent on factories. You know, he was against factories, right? He So we use the charka, we'll make our own cloth, right? And we go back to the way we lived for millions of years, in self-sufficient villages. And so that part was good, right? But then, Bhagavad Gita is all about nonviolence. That's nonsense. That's not good. That's completely misleading the people. Okay, so then Arjuna has now turned his face toward his eternal friend, Krishna, and is understanding the Bhagavad Gita from him. And thus, hearing from Krishna, he can understand the supreme glories of the Lord and be free from lamentation. A lot of kids nowadays are stressed, right? They have panic attacks. Of course, some of them take drugs, engage in illicit activities. They're not really happy. And the times they are happy, it's based on nonsense rather than Krishna consciousness, right? And they commit suicide. They go and kill other kids, right? It just happened again yesterday or the day before, another shooting in a school, right? It's happening all the time. Why would a kid get a gun and go and kill other kids and teachers? See? That means they're supremely frustrated and angry and vengeful. That's the result of their education. They're not educating them in Krishna. They're educating them in carbohydrates and proteins and sugars. Do you think carbohydrates, proteins, and sugars are going to save them at the time of death? No way, you see. Arjuna is advised herewith by the Lord not to lament for the bodily change of his old grandfather and his teacher. He should rather be happy to kill their bodies in the righteous fight so that they may be cleansed at once of all reactions from various bodily activities. Did you remember reading that? Did you read the whole Bhagavad Gita? Do you remember that? That's a shocking statement. He said he should be happy killing them. Do you remember reading that? Right? You see, Prabhu, do you remember reading that? Mataji? You read the Bhagavad Gita, I'm sure. Do you remember reading this line? That Arjuna should be happy killing Dronacharya and Bhisma Pitama? Huh? You remember it? You remember reading that? You do? Okay, that's good. I'm glad you did. You remember reading it? No, this is, I mean, you would never expect a statement like that, right? Prabhupada's saying that Arjuna is advised herewith by Lord not to lament for the bodily change of his old grandfather and his teacher. He should rather be happy to kill their bodies in the righteous fight so that they may be cleansed at once of all reactions from various bodily activities. So, when Bhisma Pitamaha was on a bed of arrows, meaning Arjuna shot him with so many arrows that he was above the ground but stuck to it by the arrows that went through his body and penetrated the ground. So he's above the ground a few inches, and he stayed in that position for about a month. Imagine how painful that is. And after a month, he no longer had any flesh or blood or bones. I mean, he had bones, but no flesh or blood. But he was still alive, and he was still talking, right? And at that point, he started explaining Raja Dharma, and he taught Yudhisthira and humanity, the Vishnu Sahasranam Sutram. And there was a question. He said, why didn't he do this before? Why is he doing it when he no longer hardly has a body? He's just bone. Because he said, because I was eating the food of Dhritarashtra, but now that my body is completely finished, I don't have that influence. See how important it is not to eat unholy food. Very important. You get contaminated by it, right? So he said, now I can speak. I think he was asked, how come you didn't help Draupadi? Because they didn't help. He and Dronacharya did not try and stop Draupadi being stripped. And because of that, they had to die. But see, it says here, he should be happy to kill their bodies. If you kill the body, are you actually killing the person? No. Now, that's not an excuse to commit murder, okay? That's not an excuse to commit murder. But in the case where Krishna orders you, that's different. Right? Now, how do we know if Krishna is going to order? Let's settle that point, because before, pretty soon everyone will say, well, Prabhu, last night Krishna told me to kill my wife, and I think I should do it. No. There's another step before you do that. So this is explained in 18th chapter, 57 and 58th verse. We'll just read the 58th verse. So it says, I'm not going to read the whole purport, it just says, but as soon as he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is liberated, free from the material perplexities. One should note very carefully that one who is not active in Krishna consciousness is losing himself in the material whirlpool, in the ocean of birth and death. No conditioned soul actually knows what is to be done and what is not to be done. But a person who acts in Krishna consciousness is free to act because everything is prompted by Krishna from within and confirmed by the spiritual master without. So that's the step you have to go through before you can kill somebody. Even if you dream about it and you say, I saw Krishna, he told me. I'm not kidding you, man. This is serious stuff. I got to kill. No. You have to go to Guru, and if Guru confirms it, then you can do it. And if he doesn't confirm it, then just forget about it, because you got as Salman Rushdie said, some of the things Muhammad heard were from the devil, not from God. That's why they tried to kill him, and they almost killed him. Now he's blind in one eye, and he's got a lot of health problems because a Muslim guy tried to slit his throat, and they almost killed him. This happened just like 2-3 months ago. And the fatwa against him was given when he published his book. That's like 30, 40 years ago. Did you know that? Yeah. You learn a lot of things in class, So, yeah, and someone tried to do it and almost did it, but now he's very seriously injured for the rest of his life. Okay, so also in the first canto, 7th chapter, 5th verse, it says, within the super soul becomes master and becomes spiritual master as scriptures, saints, and initiator, spiritual master. There you go. So that validates the statement also right here. Then again, it said, in a letter to a devotee named Shivananda Das, May 21, 1969. Shiksha and Diksha gurus instruct from without, externally, and Chaita Guru from within, internally. So you see there are other places where this point that he's making in 1858 is validated, right? When it says, everything is prompted by Krishna from within and confirmed by the spiritual master. It doesn't say without there, but it's implied, right? Okay, so now we go back to this amazing purport. And here it says, all these airs are generated from the center of the heart, which is one only. This central energy is superior energy of the Lord, who is seated within the heart with the soul of the body, meaning with the jiva, who acts under the guidance of the Lord. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita. So there's two things the scientists don't know. They don't know about the jiva being in the body, and they don't know about Paramatma in the body. You see how many things they don't know. There's plenty of things that they don't know about the body, but yet they claim to be experts. Then there's a very important point in the second chapter. Yeah, let's see. second chapter, 41st verse, where it says, when one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. There it is. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This is what you have to teach your kid, to reject the material conception of life. Now, this is a complicated thing. What is the material conception of life? I've read this before, but I'm going to read it again. It's something that I've written. The material conception of life, MCL, all right, is an illusory set of beliefs that keep people bound up in the cycle of repeated birth, old age, disease, and death. It is taught in modern schools to unwitting children, children who have no way of seeing through it, right? They're unwitting. They don't have enough experience in life to understand that this thing is completely nonsense, right? It is taught in modern schools to unwitting children so that they will grow up to be exploited throughout life as consumers of myriad products that are for the most part not necessary. People waste their money, time, energy, and well-being buying these products which distract their time and attention from self-realization and God-realization. Atheistic humanism, AH, so now we have MCL and AH. Pedagogy is the educational theory used in public schools. It denies belief in God or the supernatural being who is the creator and proprietor of everything material and spiritual. So the whole theory of modern education today, whether it's India or the United States or Australia or Europe or South Africa, it's the same. It's atheistic humanism, which very, very emphatically says there is no such thing as God. That's their theory for teaching. Right? That's the basis theory for teaching. Humanists believe that this life is the only life we have and rejects the existence of the eternal spiritual world. It is based on the belief that there is only matter and that knowledge is uniquely achieved by experience in the material world. AH, meaning atheistic humanism, claims human beings are completely independent and self-reliant of any supernatural causes. The false concepts of AH inhibit people from achieving liberation from the cycle of birth and death. The following false concepts are the basis of the MCL, meaning material conception of life, and AH, atheistic humanism. 1, there is no scientific validation that God exists. One can only understand the truth by experimental science, logic, reason, and empiricism, or the theory that all knowledge is derived from sense experience. Right there, you become an atheist, right? And that's what they're teaching in school. You remember what Sanskriti said? She said, they were in the first lesson they had in biology class, advanced biology in high school. She's a very smart girl. She's in advanced school program. First thing they said is there's no God. They're not embarrassed to say it. They're emphatic. Right? Number 2, MCL, material conception of life, denies the existence of supernatural or spiritual forces and personalities that influence human behavior and nature. Wait a minute, we say to Paramatma, we pray to Krishna, please help us, right? Even when one of the so-called rockets was going in outer space, and then it had some malfunction, and it blew up. People died. The people in the newsreels, they said, if you have a prayer, please say it now for our spacemen. You know, they died. Right? Who are they going to pray to? Which God they're going to pray to? Or what? They're going to pray to Einstein or Isaac Newton? Or who are they going to pray to? Right? You see, they're asking you to pray. After denying the existence of God, they're asking you to pray. You see how crazy they've become. Number 3, a human being has only one life. There is no reincarnation. This is what they teach. 4, there is nothing after death. The person stops existing after death, and there is no judgment of a person after death. 5, sense gratification is the goal of life, and for sustained sense gratification, one needs money by hook or crook, which means by any possible means. For example, one can study mundane knowledge to qualify for a high-paying job, to earn a good salary and spend money for as much sense gratification as possible. This is a concept of life summarized as work hard, play hard, performing well in the office, and then partaking in fun activities with friends and family during personal time. One can also become a criminal and become rich by illegal activities to engage in unlimited sense gratification. There's plenty of criminals. You know how many people there are in jail in the United States? Over 1 million. Over 1 million for committing bad acts, right? Number 6, disbelief in all holy scriptures, which are wrongly considered to be mythological. If out of curiosity one reads holy scriptures, one has the right to speculate and interpret them as he or she likes. This is taught. That's what Gandhi did. He writes a whole book saying the Bhagavad Gita is all about nonviolence. 7, the false belief that everything is relative. There are no absolutes. This false concept is debunked in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1. By this false concept, one leads an irresponsible life without a moral compass, thinking, I am this body, and everything related to this body is mine, such as the attraction between male and female, which is the basic principle of material existence that becomes solidified by sex into a hard knot of lusty attachment. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth, he and she, wealth, thinking, this is my house, this is my land, this is my wife, this is my husband, this is my family, this is my country, everything is mine, right? This mindset is expressed by the Sanskrit phrase, aham mameti, everything is for me or for I, me and mine, for both the male and female, Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.8. The false ego, which develops by falsely identifying, this is number 9, the false ego, which develops by falsely identifying with the temporary material body instead of the eternal soul within the body, engenders false pride, false prestige, illusion, false association, ignorance of the eternal soul, material lust, bewilderment, and refusal to surrender to the will of God and engage in His service with love and devotion in order to return to the spiritual world. One rejects all this, right? Number 10, being too materially attached, one neglects spiritual life. Number 11, some want to merge into Brahmajyoti, the eternal impersonal effulgence emanating from the transcendental body of Krishna, by artificially rejecting their individuality and that of Krishna. Also, there's a belief that the material world is an illusion and does not exist, therefore reject it. God is not a person. If Krishna incarnates in the material world, it is with a material body, and he is subject to the 3 modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, like ordinary persons. 12. Some do not believe in anything, being angry at all sorts of spiritual speculations and contradictions. They become hopeless of achieving any spiritual enlightenment and reject belief in God and spiritual mentors. 13. Fear of an eternal personal identity of oneself that may live forever. That this is due to falsely identifying with the body that gradually grows old and sick. Due to ignorance, one believes that the old body will continue eternally if there is eternity. Often such persons prefer suicide rather than eternal life. They have no knowledge of their eternal soul and its eternal spiritual body that remains forever youthful and full of vitality in the spiritual world. 14. Conception of void that arises from frustration in life. When one experiences unending physical or mental suffering in life, he or she may desire to merge into a void where there is no more suffering and no more consciousness. So this is Buddhist philosophy. 15. The conditioned soul, under control of three modes of nature, remains dependent on selfish acts of self-indulgence and thus becomes subject to the laws of karma, reward and punishment. He feels fear because God may impose negative karmic reactions for his sinful activities that haunt him. 16. Materialists are convinced that the construction of skyscrapers, airplanes, cars, roads, cell phones, computers, rockets, washing machines, and all sorts of modern inventions and pharmaceutical medicines, etc., for improving the quality of life are the greatest achievement of mankind. This is an illusory concept. The proof is that after 300 years of scientific innovations and massive industrial production, there are serious problems with environmental toxicity, climate change, wars, drug addiction, mental health problems, fear of economic collapse, and anxious doubts about mankind's existence on the Earth planet. That's after 300 years of science. Number 17. Eager to receive honor from others and disturbed by dishonor, anxious to be famous for religion, some become a religious mentor and join a religion which is not following religious principles, or be recognized as an anti-religious, atheistic humanist and convince people to reject belief in God. These are different aspects of the material conception of life. In the material conception of life, people are most influenced by the modes of ignorance, tamas, and some are influenced by the passionate mode of material nature, rajas. Under the spell of these two modes, a living being acts under the misconceptions of the material conception of life. It is impossible for people in the modes of passion and ignorance to understand knowledge of Lord Krishna. It is only in the mode of goodness that one can begin to understand Lord Krishna and spiritual practices in the material world and eternal life in the spiritual world. Well, I'm going to finish this tomorrow. It's really a long list. This is what should be taught to kids. These are the things that they should learn. Not that, all the energy in the body is caused by carbohydrates and proteins, blah, blah, blah. And when you die, there's nothing, and there's no God because science can't validate it. This is all nonsense. But, you have to make your decisions in life, how you want your kids to be educated. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay. Are there any questions?
Yes. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
So, you talked about the energy and scientists.
I didn't talk about it.
We read about it, sorry. We read about the energy and scientist interpretation of the energy, and we read about that. So, is it maybe their incomplete understanding of how energy is coming from food? Because in Bhagavad Gita also, I think Krishna says, right?
Patra pushpam phalam toyam.
Not patra pushpam phalam toyam, but I am the moon, and then from the moon the juice transfer into the plants, and you eat the plants to get the energy. So is it? But when we see it looks like little contradiction. Super soul, ultimately it's an energy cycle. It probably coming from source is supreme, from where it transfer to the plants, and from plants it goes to our body.
Okay, but
So-
I gave you the example of the Jiva Goswamis. They virtually stopped eating, but they didn't die.
Yes, but Maharaj, if you see in practically, like if
No,
I
I
fast
know
for
it.
10 days, I will be weak.
You don't know how to do it, but because you have to be spiritually excited. Then you don't feel any type of discomfort by not eating. I mean, they would eat a little bit. They would get some ghee every day as bhikshu. As they would beg some ghee or milk, whole milk, from and get it fresh right from the cow. And that was it. They didn't eat the rest of the day.
Yeah. But then how do you understand? But in Bhagavad Gita,
How do you
it's-
understand what?
No.
What do
Bhagavad
you want to
Gita
understand?
about the plants, right? So eating is also essential, as per, I think, right?
Yes and no. You're eating every day. I'm eating every day. but we don't realize what we're capable of doing.
Yeah,
The
that
Goswamis gave us an example of what you can do. Now, I'm not saying you have to stop eating tomorrow, right? But I'm saying that there are many things we don't realize about our potential. But other people have demonstrated it, that it is possible. So it's not impossible. You understand the point? It's not impossible. But the scientists, they don't mention, I mean, we just read that all the energy is coming from the super soul. The super soul's in your heart, right? The scientists, they're saying, no, it all comes from the carbohydrates and the proteins and sugars. That's not true. It's coming from Paramatma.
maybe they have limited. That's what I'm trying to see that. Okay, they have limited understanding of their starting point is from food stuff, protein, and but how, what is the source for that protein, and they
It's
they
the
don't
sun.
know.
And what
Yeah,
is the
that they
source of
don't
the
know.
sun?
That's
No, what is the source of the sun? It's Brahmajyoti.
yeah.
It's still coming from Krishna. But there's an alternate, what we're learning here, there's an alternate way of living where you reduce eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And that is called Krishna consciousness culture. Now, you might think it's impossible, but that's the artificial limitation that you're putting on yourself. Well, I'm not saying it's clear. It's possible. There's examples of it. You know, the Goswamis are one example of it. Haridas Thakur is another example of it. He was hardly sleeping at all. He hardly took care of his body. He only took care of his body for half an hour in 24 hours, right? And sometimes he didn't eat also, it says. Sometimes he didn't even eat. He even didn't eat anything in that half an hour, right? And sometimes he didn't even sleep. Now, how did he do that? It was by his absolute excitement in hearing and chanting and preaching Krishna consciousness. See? Now, there's another example, is Napoleon. Do you know Napoleon hardly slept 2 or 3 hours at night? He was so excited conquering countries, you know, killing people and conquering them and looting them, that he didn't want to sleep. He would wake up like 2 o'clock in the morning after going to sleep 12 o'clock at night, and all his secretaries, he had like 20, 30 secretaries, he'd start dictating to them, you do this in Poland, and you do this in Russia, and you do this, and you do that, you know. He was excited, but not by Krishna, by expansion of his kingdom, of his empire, you see. So there's another example right before your eyes. He was hardly eating and sleeping. He was so excited. You know. Now look at the Goswamis. They were excited, but not for conquering people and the countries. They were excited by hearing and chanting about Lord Krishna and writing wonderful, very advanced books about knowledge, about Krishna's glories, and preaching. You see, so you don't realize what your potential is. You understand? You think, oh, I got to get 6 to 8 hours every night, and I have to do this, and I have to do that. You don't have to do all those things. You can reduce it significantly.
Yeah. So that's Maharaj. I think there are a lot of yogis. They can survive months and years without eating, and there are examples. But someone can argue like, okay.
Okay, now you're giving examples. All right. So now don't argue with me then. You are giving examples.
Prabhu is referring to the chapter 3, 14th verse in Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
It's all living bodies subsist on food grains.
Yeah. Anabhavanti parajanya. Yeah. Yeah, but it didn't say that the sannyasis or the yogis subsist on food grains. It says all living entities, talking about 8,400,000 species, right? So, fine. But it is possible to reduce that to almost nothing.
The differentiation I see from the Srimad Bhagavatam verse versus the Bhagavad Gita verses, the living bodies subsist on food grains. The body survives on the food grains, but the energy is powered through the airs, which is initially powered by the heart and powered by the Paramatma. Is my understanding correct?
Yeah, but you have examples of people. He just gave one of himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are people that can exist virtually not eating. There are karmis that do it also. If you look up on the internet, look up, man has not eaten for 10 years. He's still alive. Look it up. Okay, we'll stop right there while you're looking it up and have Guru Puja. Did you find something?
Yep.
Huh?
Jani was commonly known as Mataji, a manifestation of Great Mother. Jani believed that the goddess provided him with water, which dropped down to a hole in his palate, which allowed him to live without food or drink.
Okay, go over there. All right, there's one example. There are many examples of people who stopped eating and still stayed alive.
One of my grandmother's sister,
Yeah?
she was like that. She was very great worshipper of Mother Durga.
Yeah.
And she was eating very little, like almost nothing.
You see, Prabhu, don't deny it. You might say, I can't do it. That's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. But that doesn't mean it's not possible.
And
Just because you can't do it.
and she used to walk from Delhi to Vaishno Devi.
Vaishno Devi.
Walking.
Yeah.
And she's so tiny and thin and eating almost nothing. And she's doing like so much like this.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have done that, reduced their eating to almost nothing.
I was always surprised like how she's getting this much energy.
She's excited
She's like,
by Vaishno Devi. Go ahead. Haribol.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bandho Moi Savadana Mate
Mando Mui Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasad E Bhavatariya Jai
Janara Prasade Bhai He Bhavatoriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te
Krishna Prapti Oya Oy Te
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Koriya Kya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Goriya
Arana Koriya Mane Asha
Arana Koriya Manea Sa
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Jai Prasad Pure Sarva चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिल जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिल जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
प्रेम भक्ति होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
प्रेम भक्ति होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
वेद गाय जहाँ रचरित श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनार बंधु
जनर बंधु
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनार बंधु
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु जनर बंधु
लोकेनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना
लोकेनाथ लोकेर जीवाना
हा हा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया
प्रभु कोर दया दे मोरे पद जय
हा हा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया
प्रभु कोर दया दे मोरे पद जय
इबे जास गुशु त्रिभुवाना
सुशक्ति भुवाना
श्रीला प्रभुपाद भक्ति तपवाना
श्रील प्रभुपाद भक्ति तपवाना
जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद
जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद
नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने
नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादिशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gora Hari Bo. Jayom Vishnupad, Paramahansa Pararajagacha, Astatara Satarasi, Shimad, His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sikho, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath, Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapura Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Garanga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhakti Sumati Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vani Vichari Visesa Sunyavani Paskari.
The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Bhavan Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi. Haribo, Haribo. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityananda. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vani Pacharya Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya. There's a time. Hare Krishna.